Sometimes when you take note of a future quarterback prospect early in their career, you never really know what you're going to get. Like a lot of people you can remember were very high on Christian Hackenberg after his freshman year at Penn State, and then he just never got any better, and he got worse. And you see some of these guys like Daniel Jones in this year's draft, an example of a guy that you didn't really see a whole lot of progression and growth in his game over his course of being a starter for a couple of years. But he didn't have, obviously, the same type of buzz initially that a Christian Hackenberg did. So when you look at Drew Lock, here's another guy that was a starter throughout the entirety of his career at Missouri. But as I watch him in a 2016 compared to 2018, there was slight growth and improvement, but for the most part, his flaws then are his flaws now, and he really didn't improve that much in terms of his flaws. So when I look at guys going from age 18, 19 to 21, 22, which are still really formative years as a football player, and you do not see a lot of tangible growth, you do not see a lot of tangible improvement, it gives me pause for concern. And I can safely say that I am not the biggest Drew Lock advocate or the biggest Drew Lock fan. And I was not surprised in any way to see that he ended up dropping into the second round of this year's draft. And the reality is, I'm not even sure that he was worth that high of a pick, but nonetheless, I would have been a lot more questioning of the decision if he had went in the top 10 or top 15 or even the top 20. Because the reality is the film just did not match up to the hype of the prospect for a period of time. Now you look at him, he passes the eyeball test. He's got the size you want at the position. He's got a really strong arm, not Mahomes, Allen type of truly elite, special, ungodly level arm strength, but he can make all the required throws. He's got better arm strength than Daniel Jones. He's got better arm strength than Kyler Murray. He's got similar levels of arm strength to Dwayne Haskins. So again, when you talk about the easy things to look at because they're the most obvious, they got the most sex appeal to them. You know, when you talk about the quarterback position, you talk about size and you talk about arm strength. He's got both of those in abundance. He's a decent athlete for his size. He can extend plays with his feet. He's a threat running with the football. As a guy rolling out of the pocket, he's not just automatically going to run. He can keep his eyes downfield and he can be effective throwing on the move. You know, so you look at that and you say, okay, that's pretty good. He was a 4-year starter. He played in 50 career games, so he's durable. He's tested in arguably the toughest conference in the country in the SEC. He was a 4-year starter, made 50 career starts. So when you talk about abilities that quarterbacks can have, especially young quarterbacks, and when you were trying to project them as future franchise level guys, the number one ability they can have is the ability of availability. Doesn't matter whatever tools or skills you have, if you cannot be on the field, that crap doesn't matter. Well, Drew Lock established through his 4 years that more often than not, he can consistently answer the bell. 50 starts in 4 years, you know, that shows a track record. That shows that you're not as worried about him necessarily being the guy that gets to the league. And it's always this and it's always that. And there's always some type of little nick and cut and bruise. And that's good. You know, when you're talking about taking guys high, you want some certainty with what you're getting. Lock provides you a little certainty potentially in terms of the availability. And you know no matter what, he's not going to shrink 6 inches and he's not going to lose a ton of arm strength. Those are things that are going to stick there. Those are things that he has, and that's what he's going to be. And that is great. But once you get past that, the reality is with Drew Lock on film at Missouri, every other trait that he had was average to below average to completely subpar to terrible. There are no other really, really high marked strengths in his game. His accuracy is very hit and miss. He has times that he can make special throws. I mean, he can make some incredible spot on the money, what you call big time money NFL throws. And then he'll be just as prone to overthrow a pass to the flat to the running back as Eli Manning would be. His ball placement is inconsistent as hell. He overthrows way too many balls. He needs better touch. You talk about a guy who has a tendency to throw all of his throws with one speed. You have to be able to vary your speeds. You have to be able to adjust. You have to be able to throw with some touch. You have to be able to lead guys. And he didn't really show the ability to do that. His pocket presence was okay, but at times he didn't stand the tallest in the pocket. He can get frazzled with some pressure coming at him. So not again a great trait of his decision making. When you talk about being able to see the field, it's one thing to be able to see it. It's another thing to be able to see it, quickly read it, react to it, and act. And he struggles with that. He's late to react to what he sees. He makes really bad decisions at times when he's under pressure. He forces balls into bad coverage looks that he just has no business making those throws, which is going to get him in trouble at the NFL level. His field vision, when you talk about that system at Missouri, it's a lot of quick kind of primary read type of throws in that particular system that you're going to see a lot out of these quarterbacks. But he has a tendency as the play goes on to just lock onto his primary target. He gets to his second read, but that's really about it and not very quickly. I also talk about, again, the ability to see and read and react. He has to wait to see guys open to throw to them, as opposed to what I would prefer is a guy that's able to throw guys open, a guy that is able to anticipate his target, anticipate not where they are, but where they need to be and where that window is actually going to be. And I just don't think he really sees it. But beyond all else, by far his biggest drawback, his mechanics. He's a mess. They suck, period. He falls away from his throws instead of stepping into them. He doesn't step into his throws with his lower body. His weight shift is really, really bad. His arm motion isn't compact enough. He brings the ball back too far, like he comes way back with it. His footwork stinks. He's all over the place with his arm angle. And again, when you talk about that, I compare it similarly to a golf swing. You look at Jack Nicklaus, arguably the greatest golfer of all time, regardless of if he's hitting driver or he's hitting pitching wedge. No matter what, his swing motion stayed the same. It might not go as far back to parallel, depending on the club that he was swinging, that was true, but everything about the fundamental swing stayed exactly the same outside of that. His takeaway, his windup, as you would call it, his position, follow through, all that looked very similar, whether it was a driver or a pitching wedge in his hand. And that helped with consistency with his power, consistency with his accuracy, consistency with his ability to spin the ball in the way that he does. Well, when you talk about being a quarterback and throwing from all different types of arm angles all over the place, it's really hard to establish a rhythm like that. It's really hard to develop muscle memory. And as a result, guys that do that sometimes, unless they just have special level skills, which Drew Lock does not, they are going to really struggle with their accuracy with their ball placement. If Drew Lock wants to have a chance of sticking in the NFL, he has to work on his mechanics because they were god-awful bad in college, and they did not get any better. When I look at this pick for the Broncos, I say, you know what? You got him in the second round. He was a guy that was getting a lot of buzz, talking about he's a top 10, top 20 type of pick, and you got him in the second round. You can live with that. It's worth the gamble on the size and the arm strength and the durability and the decent, adequate athleticism in round 2, especially at that position. It's okay to do that. That's not the worst thing in the world. And from all reports you hear, Drew Lock is a really high character guy, works his tail off. He's good in the locker room. He's good in the film room. Those are traits and characteristics that you can fucks with, dare we say. Those are the types of traits that you want a young quarterback that you're bringing in, that you're looking someday to potentially be that franchise guy, to have those types of traits. The good thing for him coming into Denver as a second-round pick, there is not the immediate pressure to start right away. He's going to be behind elite Joe Flacco, but it's not the worst situation for him. As a general rule, to me, if you're taking a quarterback in round number 1 and you don't have a clearly established top 10 or 12 quarterback, in part you would hope that you took that quarterback in round number 1 as a guy to be a potential top 10 or 12 quarterback in the future. And if he did that and the other guy in front of him is not, then the rookie needs to play because the upside is far greater. Who gives a crap about trying to win now? You're trying to build for the next 5, 10, 15 damn years. But in the case of Drew Lock, Joe Flacco, as scrub as he is, does give the Broncos a better chance to win right now. He has some gap and distance between him and a Drew Lock. Drew Lock does not have the dynamic abilities as a runner as a Lamar Jackson did. So it's potentially a really good situation for Drew Lock to go into in terms of being able to go in, learn the NFL game, practice, work on his craft, study in the film room, work on some of his things from a mechanical standpoint, and get better and not have the pressure of having to come in and be the guy right away. Because he sure as hell isn't ready. Like when I graded him, I thought I was honestly going to end up grading him a little higher than I did. I thought, I'm being too hard on him. Like, don't let your preconceived notions cloud your judgment here. If I watch him, I'm like, this is a third to fourth round level quarterback. I mean, that's where he fell to me. First round talk, that was insane. Like, I have way more confidence in a Daniel Jones making it in the NFL than I do a Drew Lock. Like, I see Blake Bortles type of guy with a better arm. Like, what is so special about a Drew Lock? The answer is he gets size, arm strength, and decent athleticism. There's not much else. Everything else was mediocre, below average, or flat out sucked. Again, not a great recipe for success for being a long-term franchise quarterback in the NFL. That said, totally worth the gamble for the Broncos in round number 2.